It was a Tuesday night, cold, gray, the kind of evening where everything feels heavier. We were sitting at opposite ends of the couch, like two strangers stranded in the same storm. The TV was on, but neither of us was watching. Then she said it. "I hate you." Just like that. No warning. No rage. Just calm, cold poison. I stared at her, stunned. "What did you say?" "I hate you, Mark," she repeated, slower this time, like she wanted to make sure I felt every syllable. And I did. God, I did. I waited for her to follow it with something, anything. But she turned her head back to the screen like she'd just told me we were out of milk. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood up, walked out the front door, and kept walking. No coat. No phone. Just the keys in my pocket and the sound of my boots on the sidewalk. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to vanish. But what I didn't know then, what I couldn't have imagined, was what would happen next. What I would discover. And what it would cost. I drove all night, aimlessly. Every highway sign was a suggestion, not a destination. Somewhere around 3 a.m., I crossed into a town I didn't recognize. The streets were empty, the gas station lights flickered like they hadn't been serviced in years. I found a cheap motel off the interstate. Cash only. No questions. Perfect. The room smelled like bleach and regret. I collapsed onto the mattress, fully clothed, heart pounding in my ears. That night, I didn't sleep. Not really. I kept replaying her face. The way she looked at me, like I was a burden she'd carried too long. But the more I thought about it, the more it didn't add up. We hadn't been perfect. But hate. That wasn't us. Unless it was. The next morning, I bought a burner phone. No contacts. No social media. Total blackout. I needed time to think without anyone pulling me back. But by day 3, something strange happened. I got a text on the burner phone. "Mark, if you're reading this, I need you to know, it wasn't real." No name. No number. Just that. I stared at the message for minutes, trying to understand. Wasn't real. What wasn't? The hate? The fight? My marriage? And how the hell did they find this number? That's when I knew, I hadn't disappeared far enough. And someone was watching me. I left the motel that night. Didn't even check out. Just grabbed my keys and drove until sunrise painted the sky in a sickly orange. I stopped at a roadside diner 2 towns over, the kind with torn red booths and a waitress who called you "hon" even if she hated you. I sat in the corner with a view of the door and the parking lot. My coffee stayed untouched. That message haunted me. It wasn't real. The words looped like static in my head. I decided to test something. I bought another burner phone at a convenience store and left the first one on the counter in the diner. If someone was tracking me, I'd know soon. I checked into a new motel under a different name, Daniel. Just Daniel. No last name. I paid in cash, again. Same bleach smell. Same flickering light. But this room had a mirror across from the bed. That night, as I sat on the edge of the mattress, I saw something move in the reflection. Not outside. Not in the room. Behind me. I spun around fast, nothing. But I swear I'd seen a figure. A silhouette. Just for a second. I laughed nervously, shaking my head. "You're losing it, Mark." I was about to close the blinds when I noticed something strange in the parking lot below. A black car. Same make, same model that had been parked outside the first motel. I hadn't thought much of it then. Now. I couldn't ignore it. I backed away from the window. And that's when a new message came through on the second burner phone, the one no one should have known about. You weren't supposed to remember. My blood ran cold. Something was very, very wrong. And I was finally starting to see just how deep it went. I didn't sleep that night. I sat with my back to the wall, facing the door, the phone clenched in my hand like a weapon. I kept replaying the words, "You weren't supposed to remember." Remember what? By morning, I was back on the road, no direction, just a growing pit in my gut and the slow, gnawing sense that my reality wasn't mine anymore. I stopped at a library 2 towns away. Old school. No cameras. Free Wi-Fi. I logged onto a public computer, created a throwaway email, and started digging. Not into my wife, but into myself. I searched my name, Mark Delaney. Old job listings, a few arrest records from someone else with the same name, and one obituary. I clicked it. It was dated 2 years ago. Mark Delaney, 37, died in a car accident outside Milford County. Survived by his wife, Rachel. My heart stopped. That's impossible. I was alive. I was here. I zoomed in on the photo. It was me. Same eyes. Same scar above the left brow. But, not the shirt. Not the haircut. Same face. But off. I sat frozen in the library chair, palms sweating, vision tunneling. Had I lost my mind? Or was someone making me believe I had? Before I could process any of it, I felt it, a presence. Like someone standing right behind me. I turned slowly. A man in a black coat stood near the copier, pretending to read a brochure. He wasn't. He was staring at me in the reflection of the glass. I shut the computer down and walked out fast, heart hammering, lungs tight. And as I stepped outside, my phone buzzed again. "Stop digging, Mark. You died for a reason." I nearly dropped the phone. Whoever this was, they didn't want me to find the truth. But now I had to. By that evening, I was off the grid again, different town, smaller roads, no signs, no receipts. I parked the car in the woods and hiked to a cabin I hadn't visited in years. It had belonged to my uncle, now long gone. No power. No signal. Just a fireplace and a lock on the door. Finally, quiet. Or so I thought. That night, as I sat by the cold hearth flipping through an old notebook I found in a drawer, I heard footsteps above me. Slow. Careful. Deliberate. I froze. There was no second floor. No attic. Or, there shouldn't have been. I grabbed the only thing within reach, a rusted fire poker, and crept toward the corner closet. I'd never opened it before. The door creaked like it hadn't moved in a decade. Inside, there was a narrow ladder leading straight up into darkness. I stared at it for a long time before I climbed. Step by step, the air grew colder. The kind of cold that settles in your teeth and bones. When I reached the top, I pushed open the trapdoor. A woman sat in the middle of the attic. Not just any woman. It was my wife. Rachel. She looked different, gaunt, older somehow, with dark circles under her eyes. She didn't flinch. She didn't scream. She just said, "Mark, you weren't supposed to come back here." I stood frozen, the poker still in my hand. What the hell is going on? She looked up at me, and her eyes, they weren't the same. Not quite. "You weren't supposed to wake up." My voice cracked. "What do you mean wake up?" She stood now, slowly, like every movement was rehearsed. "They said if I told you I hated you, it would reset everything. Wipe your memory. Make you disappear from your own story." I stepped back. "Who are they?" She opened her mouth to answer, but we both heard it. The front door creaking open downstairs. And then heavy boots on the floorboards. We weren't alone. And whoever had just entered. Wasn't here to talk. The footsteps downstairs were slow, deliberate, no rush. Whoever was down there knew we were trapped. Rachel grabbed my arm, not with fear, but with urgency. We don't have much time. I pulled away. No more games. You tell me everything. Now. She looked me in the eyes. You were part of something, before. A program. You volunteered, remember? You said you wanted to forget. They promised to take the pain, the guilt, all of it. I never, she cut me off. You did. They took your memories. Buried you in a fake life. Gave you me. I was the handler. But then, you started remembering. I couldn't breathe. You're saying, none of this is real. No, she whispered. It's all real. But not yours. Then we heard a new sound, clicking. A device, metal against metal. Then a voice. Target has returned to prohibited zone. Extraction authorized. Rachel's face went pale. They're here to wipe you again, she said. But if they do it now, you won't come back. I gripped the poker tighter and moved toward the ladder. Then we fight. No, she said. You run. I'll stop them. I'm not leaving you. Her expression softened, and for the first time since I found her, I saw something real, regret. You were never supposed to fall in love with me, Mark. But I did. And now this is the only way. Before I could say anything, she shoved me backward, down the ladder. I hit the floor hard. The last thing I saw was her closing the trapdoor above me. Then I heard it, shouts, a struggle, something heavy crashing, and then silence. I waited. 1 minute. Then 2. Nothing. I stood and limped to the door, heart racing. But when I opened it, there was no snow. No car. No forest. Just a hallway. Clean. Sterile. Fluorescent lights buzzing above me. And at the far end, a steel door marked, Reorientation Chamber 7, Subject 241, Delaney, M. My legs wouldn't move at first. It was like my body knew something I didn't want to admit. That hallway, it didn't belong in the world I knew. It smelled like chemicals and silence. The walls were too white. Too perfect. Like they'd been scrubbed clean of every story. I took a step forward. Then another. When I reached the steel door, it slid open without a sound. Inside was a chair. Straps on the arms. A metal helmet above it, suspended by thick wires. Monitors lined the walls, each displaying something I recognized but couldn't place. A school hallway. A hospital room. A birthday party. A car crash. Memories? Or simulations? A man in a gray lab coat turned toward me. He didn't look surprised. Subject 241, he said calmly. You weren't expected to breach containment again. I backed up. Where's Rachel? He didn't blink. Rachel is a synthetic construct, designed to manage emotional conditioning. You overbonded. It happens. She's real to me. He typed something on a small tablet. That's the point. I clenched my fists. What is this place? He looked up. This is where we give people peace. You paid to forget, remember? The crash. The trial. He paused, checking the screen, the bodies. But something in you kept resisting. You built a story. A wife. A disappearance. You turned pain into narrative. But now you're back. I staggered. What trial? What bodies? He tilted his head. You really don't remember, or maybe you're choosing not to. Again. I turned, ready to run, but the door had vanished. Just smooth wall behind me now. You can't leave until you're clean, he said. Clean. Like erasing me was janitorial work. Then he pointed to the chair. Sit. Let us help. I looked at the screens again. They were flickering now. Distorting. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. On one screen was a live feed of me, standing in that room, staring at the monitor. But behind me, in the reflection, Rachel. Bleeding. Whispering something I couldn't hear. Over and over again. Just one word. Run. The moment I read her lips on the screen, something inside me snapped. I spun around, nothing. No Rachel. No shadow. Just me and the man in the lab coat, who now looked amused. She's not there, Mark, he said flatly. There's no one left to save you. Not this time. But I wasn't listening anymore. I turned back to the monitors, scanning every flicker, every glitch. They weren't just surveillance. They were windows. And one of them, bottom left corner, showed a static shot of that same forest cabin I'd woken up in just a day ago. Except in the corner of that screen. A door was open. And someone was standing in it. Me. But that version of me looked calm. Eyes dull. Like he didn't remember anything. Like he'd accepted the lie. I stepped back, breath ragged. There are copies of me? I asked, eyes wide. The man in the coat didn't deny it. We built several. Insurance. You were never supposed to see them. But now you've fractured the loop. I turned to him, shaking. You stole my life. He raised an eyebrow. You gave it to us. You begged to forget what you did. What did I do? He gave a sad smile. It doesn't matter. You weren't built to handle the truth. That's why you keep coming back here. No, I whispered. Not this time. I charged him. He didn't move fast enough. I slammed the metal chair into his ribs and he went down hard. I grabbed the tablet and sprinted for the far wall. There had to be a way out. A panel. A seam. Anything. Then I found it, a small metal latch near the corner. Almost invisible. I ripped it open. Behind it, a tunnel. Dark. Narrow. But real. I didn't look back. I ran. Crawled. Slid. My knees scraping. My lungs burning. I ran until the light from the lab was a distant memory. And ahead of me, I saw another light. Warmer. Sunlight. I crawled faster. And just before I reached it, I heard her voice, Rachel's, echoing through the tunnel like wind through trees. They won't stop, Mark. You have to finish what they started, then silence. And I stepped out into a world I almost recognized. Almost. I stumbled out into the light, eyes burning. The tunnel had led me into a field, wide, golden, empty. No buildings. No wires. Just wind and sky. But something was off. The air felt too still. Like the world was holding its breath. I walked until I reached a road. No signs. No sound. Then, far in the distance, a small gas station, exactly like the one I remembered from the beginning. Red roof. Flickering light. Same open sign, swaying in place. But this wasn't déjà vu. It was a loop. I stepped inside. The bell above the door chimed. Same cashier. Same song on the radio. Same newspaper on the counter, dated 3 days ago, the same day I disappeared. My hands trembled as I picked it up. Every article was familiar. Word for word. I'd read it all already. The man behind the counter smiled. Back so soon. I froze. You remember me? He nodded. We all remember you. We just pretend not to. Makes it easier for everyone. My voice cracked. What is this place? He didn't answer. He just pointed to a payphone in the corner. It was ringing. I walked to it, picked up the receiver. Rachel's voice. Quiet. Urgent. You escaped the simulation. But not the system. They'll come again. With another version. Another reset. If you want out, for good, you have to go back to where it started. I swallowed hard. Where? A pause. Then, the crash site. You know where it is. And she hung up. The line went dead. I lowered the phone, my reflection staring back at me in the scratched chrome. But it wasn't just me anymore. There were two of me in the glass. And one of them was smiling. I staggered back from the payphone, heart hammering in my chest. Two reflections. One me. The other, a perfect copy, stood motionless in the glass, eyes locked on mine, lips curled into a cold, knowing grin. I spun around. No one behind me. I turned back to the mirror. Only my reflection now. But I wasn't imagining it. I'd seen him. He was real. And if Rachel was right, then that meant the system had already deployed another version of me, one designed to take my place. To walk back into my life, compliant, reset, empty. That was their backup plan. Mine was different. I grabbed a dusty map off the rack near the counter and spread it out across a stack of old magazines. My hands traced the roads instinctively, until they landed on a narrow bend near Milford County. The place where the obituary said I died. The crash site. I didn't remember it. But my bones did. I drove without stopping. No music. No distractions. Just the low hum of the engine and my thoughts, chasing me like wolves. The trees thickened. The sky dimmed. Then, around a sharp curve, I saw it. The wreck. Still there. A rusted-out shell of a sedan wrapped around a tree. The bark was blackened, scarred. Nature had tried to forget. But I hadn't. I stepped out of the car and approached slowly, like I was walking into a grave. When I reached the driver's side, I saw what I hadn't dared to imagine. A body. Decayed, skeletal, but wearing my clothes. My wedding ring. My face. I dropped to my knees. I had died here. Really died. Everything since, the fight, the motel, the lab, the field, it had all been constructed. A rerun of grief and denial. A loop designed to keep me from facing the truth. I was never supposed to wake up. But I had. And now I knew why. Rachel's voice returned to me, soft, distant, buried in memory. You didn't just want to forget, Mark. You wanted to fix it. I looked at the wreckage one last time, then turned back toward the road. And standing in the middle of it was him. The other me. Same face. Same eyes. But no soul behind them. He raised a hand and pointed at me. Then he began to walk forward. He moved like a machine, fluid, efficient, unblinking. I backed away from the wreckage, fists clenched, but deep down I knew I couldn't outrun him. This wasn't about speed. It was about endings. What are you? I demanded. He stopped a few feet from me. Same stance. Same height. Like I was staring at a reflection that had stepped off the glass. I'm what you were supposed to become, he said flatly. Compliant. Purged. Peaceful. Peaceful. I laughed bitterly. You're empty. I'm clean, he corrected. No grief. No guilt. No memory of the crash. No Rachel. That last word cut deeper than I expected. You don't even know her, I said. I don't need to. That part of the code was erased. Emotional residue slows down recalibration. I stepped forward. She wasn't code. He tilted his head. Then why did she vanish when you woke up? I didn't have an answer. Not one that made sense. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small device, cylindrical, glowing faintly blue. Come quietly. We reintegrate. You forget again. You start fresh. That's the deal. I looked at the wreck. At the body inside. My body. And then at him. No, I whispered. That's your loop. I'm breaking mine. He moved fast, inhumanly fast, but I was ready. I ducked the first strike and drove my shoulder into his chest. We tumbled onto the forest floor, fists flying, dirt kicking up. But he didn't feel pain. He didn't bleed. Every hit I landed felt like punching a memory, there, but not real. He slammed me against the base of the tree. Last chance. Choose peace. I spat blood. I choose truth. With everything I had left, I reached for the fire poker I'd brought from the cabin, buried beneath the leaves, and drove it into the glowing device in his hand. Sparks exploded. He screamed, not loud, but glitched. A sound that fractured reality for half a second. Then silence. He collapsed beside me, twitching once, then going still. I crawled away, coughing, shaking. And above me, the sky seemed to shimmer, like a thin film of plastic melting in the sun. Reality, bending. Then I heard it. Rachel's voice. Clear. Steady. You did it, Mark. You finished it. Now choose. And before me, the world split into two paths, one leading back into the loop. And the other. Into something terrifying. Something real. The air around me pulsed, like the world itself was holding its breath. Two paths. One back to the simulation, a life where I could forget, where I'd never feel pain again. The other, raw, uncertain, terrifying. Real. I stood between them, Rachel's voice still echoing in my mind. You can forget, Mark. Go back. Let them scrub it all clean. Or you can remember, everything. Even what you did. My hands trembled. I turned back toward the wreck. The body inside. The life I'd buried. And the truth came rushing back like a flood. The crash hadn't been an accident. I was driving. Drunk. Rachel had begged me to pull over. I didn't. She died that night. Not in the loop. Not in a lab. In the real world. I fell to my knees. That's why I paid to forget. That's why the simulations were built. Not to erase what happened, but to trap me in denial. Rachel had been part of the loop only because I couldn't let her go. My guilt had created her. Sustained her. But she was gone. And it was time I faced that. I stood up slowly. My whole body aching. And I stepped off the path that led back into the simulation. Into the unknown. I woke up in a hospital bed. No wires. No helmets. Just the steady beep of a heart monitor. A nurse entered. She looked surprised. Mr. Delaney. You're awake. My voice was dry. Weak. How long? She glanced at the chart. 18 months. Medically induced coma. After the crash. You were the only survivor. I closed my eyes. She handed me a worn wedding ring. This was found in your pocket. I took it with shaking fingers. It was real. She was real. And she was gone. But now, so was the lie. I would carry the guilt. I would carry the pain. But I would carry it forward. Not to forget, to remember. Because that was the only way to truly live. 6 months have passed. I live quietly now, in a small apartment above a bookstore in a town that doesn't ask too many questions. I work the register during the day. Stack shelves at night. Read when I can sleep, and walk when I can't. The nightmares come less often. But they still come. Sometimes I dream of Rachel, not the loop version, not the programmed one, but her. The real one. Laughing in the passenger seat, hair out the window, singing off-key. The last good moment before everything went black. Other nights, I see him, the other me. The one that smiled in the mirror. And I wonder how close I came to becoming him again. I never told the doctors the whole truth. They said I survived the crash, but my mind had suffered trauma, memory loss. Nothing unusual, they said. Common with grief. I let them believe that. Because what would I say? That I lived a second life inside my own guilt. That I fought myself in a forest. That I watched a woman I loved, created by my own memory, sacrifice herself to help me wake up. No. That part stays with me. But I've changed. Every year, on the anniversary of the crash, I drive to that same road. I bring flowers. I say her name out loud. And I sit in silence, not to punish myself, but to remember her right. Not as a ghost. Not as a simulation. As Rachel. The woman I loved. The one I failed. And the one who, in the end, saved me from myself.